Did you hear that Virginia legalized marijuana? You heard wrong. Let's talk about it. I'm attorney Andrew Felucci, and this channel is about protecting your rights and defending your freedom. Please subscribe for a new video every other Tuesday. I'm a Virginia attorney, and Virginia is now reported to be the 16th state to legalize recreational marijuana. But did you know that's a false headline? I read through the bill so you don't have to. Let's talk about what's going on here in Virginia. 264 pages. That's how long the bill is. And it starts like this. When a bill is this long, no journalist is going to be able to read the whole thing, understand the whole thing, and be able to report accurately what's actually going on. Frankly, it's even difficult for attorneys to do that. This is one reason attorneys argue about these things in front of judges, because there's all sorts of ambiguities, especially in complex bills like the Virginia marijuana legalization bill. What does the bill say? Let's fire up the bong, get the marijuana grinders ready, and have a great old time. The bill does legalize personal possession of marijuana of no more than 1 ounce for people ages 21 and older. That's awesome, right? Time to get the bong ready. Not so fast. While journalists correctly say that sales of marijuana don't start until 2024, they've been leaving out the fact that you also cannot possess marijuana until 2024. And none of the legalization statutes actually take effect unless the Virginia General Assembly reenacts the entire bill next year in 2022. Frankly, what you have here is a political ploy. Virginia can now tout that we're the 16th state to legalize marijuana, even though this bill doesn't actually achieve that goal. It's really not anything more than just a resolution, essentially, saying that we think marijuana should be legal. The bill doesn't actually legalize marijuana in Virginia. It's simply a political ploy by the Democrats to try to buy votes in exchange for legal weed. If you want to smoke weed in Virginia, you gotta vote for Democrats again so we can actually legalize marijuana, like we said we just did. Even aside from the issue that marijuana is not legal today in Virginia, and it will not be until 2024, unless it's voted on again in 2022, the bill is rife with so many other problems and complexities that we need to talk about what's going on here. For example, you might have heard that you can grow cannabis for your personal use. You can just plant some marijuana in the garden with your other vegetables, or you plant it in your flower bed out front of your house. Wrong. There's regulations and rules on what exactly you can and can't do for growing personal cannabis. You can only have 4 plants per household. You may think you can just put it in whatever flower bed you have available and grow your cannabis. Wrong. It cannot be visible to the public except for from the air, which means that if your backyard is visible to the public for where your cannabis is growing, you're going to need to put up a big fence to hide your cannabis from public view. And the kicker of all this is you got to have an ID tag on your cannabis plants to identify you, your driver's license number, and a statement that it's being grown for personal use pursuant to the statutory exception. Marijuana plants need ID to grow, but you don't need ID to vote. Welcome to Virginia. Now you may think at least it'll be really easy to buy marijuana in 2024, right? Once everything's all done, you can just walk into the corner store and get yourself some marijuana. Wrong. The bill itself creates an entirely new regulatory scheme for marijuana. It creates the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority, which is going to determine all sorts of regulations, not in the bill, about how marijuana can be grown, produced, wholesaled, and then retailed to the end user. So there's all these regulations that don't even exist yet, apart from the 264-page bill that enables the Cannabis Control Authority to create and adopt regulations. So if you think you're going to be able to just go to the corner store, to the 7-Eleven, and get some marijuana, you are wrongly mistaken. One interesting issue in the bill is that it allows localities to determine if they want to ban marijuana sales in their county or city. So a locality can put a referendum to the voters and let the voters decide by a simple majority to ban marijuana sales in that county or city. So it'll be quite interesting to see if any counties or cities actually take up this opportunity and ban marijuana sales completely. At least marijuana will be affordable, right? Because there'll be a big supply and a big demand for it. Well, not so fast. There's going to be crazy taxes on marijuana. This is one of the reasons why the government wants involved in the marijuana industry. As it is now, since it's illegal and being sold for cash in secret deals, the government does not get a piece of the pie. Under Virginia's regulatory scheme for marijuana sales, there will be a 21% tax on marijuana sales that goes to the state. You got to fund the Cannabis Control Authority somehow. And localities can also adopt a 3% tax on top of that for marijuana for their own use. That's a tax rate of 24% aside from normal sales tax. It's going to be very expensive simply to buy marijuana at a retail store just due to all the taxes that are imposed on top of it. You may think that you want to get involved in the marijuana business. You want to get a license to grow or sell marijuana. I applaud the entrepreneurial spirit. The Cannabis Control Authority is going to have different board members who are going to decide literally who gets preferential treatment to get marijuana licenses. So there are certain classes of people they're going to determine are going to get preferential treatment. And one of the factors that they actually are going to look at to see if they should give somebody a license in this heavily regulated industry with all these rules is if you have previous convictions for marijuana, you indeed can get preferential treatment for getting a license to produce marijuana or sell marijuana. So I guess that means if you want to get ahead of the game for marijuana, you need to go out and get yourself some marijuana now and take a conviction for marijuana so you can get preferential treatment as well. I'm being pretty critical of the bill because it's rife with problems. I'm not alone in being critical of the bill. The ACLU of Virginia, the NAACP, they've also criticized this marijuana bill. While the bill would actually legalize simple possession of marijuana if it's reenacted and if it ever does actually become effective in 2024, the bill also creates new crimes and new punishments. So it's not just a bill saying, okay, something that was illegal is now legal. Great. That would be simple and that would be easy to enforce and to follow. The bill creates all sorts of new violations of the law that you could get yourself hemmed up in. For example, you cannot use marijuana in a car, even if you're the passenger. Now that kind of makes sense if you're the driver and maybe if the passenger's smoking marijuana, but what if it's something that is maybe an edible or something like that where it can't get the driver high? Well, that's still a violation for people to use marijuana in a car. Another new violation is that you would not be allowed to use marijuana in any public place. Now, it'll be interesting to see how that's interpreted. Right now, you're not actually supposed to drink alcohol in public, which means you really can't have a beer on your front porch if you're in view of the public. So it would be interesting to see if the using marijuana in public statute is interpreted the same way, that if you smoke a joint on your front porch, is that in public? So if you thought the legislature had just opened up the gates to go happily smoke your marijuana, you are sorely mistaken. Think again. This is a complicated, difficult regulatory scheme that is the antithesis of freedom. This is not the government saying, we're going to get out of the way and let people do what they want to do. This is the government saying, we see you're smoking marijuana anyway, we want to get our piece of the pie. That's frankly what's going on here. Let's come back to a question that was asked in my live Q&A 2 weeks ago. Glenn Hudson asked if being on medical marijuana would be a risk to your federal benefits like Medicaid, Social Security, things like that. I did a little bit of digging, and unfortunately, I'm concerned for that situation. Even though Virginia and 15 other states have legalized marijuana, Virginia really hasn't. Essentially, the federal government still considers marijuana to be a controlled substance. And so I think it's risky to be basically doing something that the federal government doesn't approve of if you're relying on federal benefits. If you have a question about your specific federal benefits like Medicaid, Social Security, things like that, you definitely should talk with an expert attorney who does those specific benefit issues. So that's my answer, is I would be very weary and very cautious of using any kind of marijuana products if you're relying on federal benefits, because marijuana is still considered an illegal drug under federal law. For more on how to protect yourself and your freedoms, check out my next video on why you need a dash cam. I'll see you over there. Please be sure to subscribe. I post a new video every other Tuesday right here on this channel.